Anyway, welcome to Chasing the Past, episode number 1. Oh, I'm still going to get used to that camera angle. I've been thinking a lot about how to start this one, because it is the first one, and it's that initial getting to know someone episode, I guess. Yeah, that's what it is. I don't know why that was a pause. But I've been thinking about this a lot, and the thing I've been thinking about is the way we portray, us to the world around us, right? I was thinking about it, calling it the mask, right? We all wear one, right? Whether there's a problem or something difficult that you don't admit, so you put something on to cover and block that away. And I guess in doing this introduction, it's like I want to make you guys aware at the reason of why we're doing this. And in doing that, I think showing you that I'm not wearing one is going to be a very important thing moving forward, because we're going to go over religious ideology, we're going to go over textual evidence in certain things, we're going to go over cultural differences, right? All these things on a ranging scale of like religion, sociology, right? Even sometimes maybe like neurochemistry, right? All different, fields of how sometimes people put those on and how to not have them when we go through some of these things. And so I think just being completely honest and just open from the get-go is the way to move forward. And, I was seeing this a lot just in probably like everybody else, right? Like you guys do, but you just maybe didn't have a word for it or a phrase for it or couldn't, not that you couldn't see it, but you just didn't have a definition for it. But I think the mask is the perfect analogy for that. And, as we like walk through life, like I really try to find if I'm putting one on or if I'm doing something, or like, am I doing it from bias or am I doing it from like a truthful perspective? Like, am I getting angry? Am I putting that cover on because it hits close to home? Or am I protecting myself from something that feels hurtful, but it is just being honest? And I think the more that we look at it, and again, nothing's black and white. Actually, that's one of the episodes that I have in my mind, and then all my in my notes that I can't wait to go over. Because apparently, speaking of being, the brain itself, right? Like, there's a myriad of conditions. Pick one. But the one that's interesting is I was like, is someone who, and is related to someone who was like very strict on something, and it was like black and white. And I go, is there some type of neurotypical or non-neurotypical like type behavior that causes a black and white thinking? It turns out there is, which I use that skill in black and white to like cut the options down to 2, and then again it's like one's usually the biased one, and then one's like, I know that's the real answer. And so it kind of helps me identify and break things down. But in living that way completely, cuts you off from a bunch of other stuff. And so that may seem difficult, right? To like kind of broaden the scope a little bit, look at a bunch of different things and then cut them down. But for me, it's been super healthy. And so I'm beginning to like, hey, this is who Chase is from Chasing the Past, is like, that I gotta stop saying like, is, excuse me, I just had water. It's not like it's anything separate. But I forgot where I was going. Oh, gotcha. So like to my right, I have a huge folder. The container for all these folders that I have like things broken down into. And then again, they have like subcategories from the main category. So if it's, let's just take the most popular one in America. If it's anything related to like my upbringing as well, which would be like Christianity, right? There was a couple years where I'm having to break all of these things down into small little pieces. And I've noticed having to go through those little pieces with people who have, been in my circumstance or been in the same position. It's a lot of information all at one time. And so the things that I noticed, at least related to that, is people either going deeper into it and being more black and white, or being like fake and up and like, oh, let me look at that, but still going right back to the other side. And, when I say things, it's not to hurt anyone's feelings or to take away something that you hold close to you. But I think looking at it and being true about it is the way to go. Because in my mind, eventually you're going to get there. And so the longer it gets pushed off, the longer it's going to take. And that just seems harder than just figuring it out and doing the work to find out what that truth would be. And so, like, in this big old, collapsible folder holder, I don't know why that was so funny. It has different sections for different things related to questions I had, whether it's, in this case, it'd be Christianity related. And, I do like Dan McClellan's perspective on it, which is, he had a good, and it's short too, so I've shown people, and it makes them think. But it's like a 10-minute TED Talk about how the Bible itself isn't speaking to you. It's that the society and the people in that community are interjecting into it. And that's what gives it meaning. And, that could make or break someone just by that video. I mean, if you're completely fundamentalist, then that has no value. And that doesn't matter, so I don't believe you. Right? But if you look at it and then you figure that out, and he uses like a really simple example. I'm pretty sure it's in Jude. But it's just like the difference of the textual writing of the Old Testament and then like how we use it now. They sound the same, and the example is making a difference. It's like, oh, I'm going to go out and make a difference. That means in English, again, this is all Dan McClellan, but it means in English that you're going to help, right? I'm going to help someone or do something that helps someone else. Then it means to make a distinction between something. Oh, I'm going to pick it apart and then find out good, bad, separate this and that. So the words are the same, but the contextual meaning of the group that it comes from, very different. And that was a really good starting point for me to look at these in a different way, right? Not put my thoughts and the things I believed into it, but to read it for what it is. And it's hard to read it for what it is, which is just a myriad or a collection of books written by people like you and I. And so unless that lens has been taken off the eyes, I won't see that. And again, I didn't get there alone. There are plenty of resources, books. I have a 7-foot bookshelf upstairs with books that I've read. And again, I think this is where something we all also do is some people get confused with them picking something. At least, again, this is my background. So Christianity is the thing that I've known since I was tiny. And never had an opinion about it until I was 25. So 24, 25. So I'm 28, 29 soon. And, I didn't look at it, like, at all. And, uh-oh, whoopsie. Does that help? Oh, hold on, pause with me, guys. Maybe that? Oh, good. Sorry, I had to do that so it would sync up. I forgot to hit the button because I'm like, this isn't glowing on my screen. And so it was easy for me to go through my own and then break it down into questions I had. And when I broke it down, I realized that most of us live in like this mindset of fear, right? Especially if it's the church I went to or the community group I went to, and especially in really tough times like it is right now. It's easy to sit in that fear and then hope rather than to think it's something that we as a collective can change. And, whether it's, apocalyptic or, the rapture or all these things, right? The only thing I realized I was holding on to was the fear of letting it go. Because if I let that go, right, then it's kind of like I called it a spiritual break. Like I'm breaking like my soul into something I knew my entire life, into something I'm questioning. And the fear of questioning usually says, hey, that's a road down of temptation. Don't do that. And I was like, I don't know. And it was this weird breaking point. And I'm noticing a lot of people around me who are doing this in their own way. And they're like, do you know what I'm talking about? And I go, I know exactly what you're talking about. The thing I can't do, though, is all I can do is try to give, like, snippets, like, little things that, like, I had a question for, and then here's what I found. And, Joe Rogan said it, too. When it was the Terrence Howard, Eric Weinstein, not debate, but podcast episode, he said to Terrence to stop teaching. Like, I just said like again. I know, this is Eric speaking, I know because I do this every day. I have an education in doing this every day. I'm here to help you because everyone else around me in my circle, my physics, university level bubble, they all just think you're crazy and they laugh. So stop teaching and learn to listen. And, so I started doing that. And the thing I want to make clear is I'm not teaching anything. I just think I have something worth contributing to. And for you. And for me. It'll make me feel better too by doing this. How do I word this? The benefit of this is nothing other than to feel like I'm moving society forward in my own way, using some type of gift or equipment or stuff that I've had, and at least try. That's always been my MO. Is like, I have to try. Like, I can't just do nothing. Like, I have to at least contribute to something or like give back in some way. And I think in doing that, I eventually made my way this years-long journey to get to that 10-minute clip of Dan McClellan and really hearing it, like having it hit and go, oh my goodness sakes. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And, it's not because of like evidence-based or, the consensus, because again, something could come out tomorrow and it could shift the entire narrative and it would blow things out of the water. Now, the evidence led me from my questions, oh, that's interesting. And had usually a little piece. It was very sporadic until it got down to like the simple things of what I was really asking of like, is it a yes or no, right? Oh, the fear of doing the wrong thing and then going to hell led me down to, is hell a real place? And then the answer is like, no, textually, there's no place, right? And again, all these we'll get to. I'm not trying to break it down immediately because maybe this isn't what you want. But it is the first one that I want to be honest about and not wear a mask or pretend to be a teacher or pretend to be someone who has so much knowledge. It really is just, and I enjoy this. And it is hard for me to sit by and do nothing. And so, because again, doing nothing is still an action. So you are still doing something. So by doing nothing, you're still doing something that isn't benefiting anybody. Except, so one, it's not benefiting anybody. And two, it's only making you suffer more. And I think that's like a really powerful statement to realize. Oh. Is that you? That's our cat. Hey, Bubby. His name's Apollo. Because he sent us to the moon. Oh, he's hunting another bug. Find a grasshopper? Actually, you know what? We have another cat. Her name is Bimo. Bimo will eat the legs off the grasshoppers. Cats doing cat stuff. They'll eat the legs off the grasshoppers and then they'll lay them at my feet. Like, here's a gift I have for you. And I'm just in awe as this thing's like wiggling around. Right, with no legs. And I'm just awkwardly looking. Oh, thank you. Right? I can't save him. Like, he has no legs. Like, he's gone. I'm like, at least eat the whole thing. Like, make it a treat or something. And so, I guess the overall point of this beginning journey that we're about to all go on is, I know that this is going to be bad. It's going to be rough. It's going to be, the lighting is not great. Like, I just turned some lights on. I had a camera that I don't know how to use, right? Microphone. Just little things that I'll learn, and it'll add to my mental tool belt, and hopefully it returns something back into, the collective for all of us, or something that, one thing that just like resonates or hits or does something to change the way that we look at stuff or that we view things, or shift a narrative into a different direction where, and I think this is good for anybody who's listening or doing something. You don't know what one thing will click and then lead someone else to see it. And then you don't know the pattern of where it goes. And maybe, and I know I'm going to say things wrong. I know I'm going to do things that aren't going to be correct. But I think that opens up the potential for people to come in and to teach and to talk on this thing, who can explain it better than I ever could. And so it's broadening a bunch of these horizons that I can't even anticipate yet. But I know that in doing so, and at least trying and giving an effort to everybody, something good will come out of it, because I'm doing it intentionally for something positive. It's not separating anything. It's not interjecting negativity. It's adding more than it's subtracting anything. Even though at times it will definitely feel like I'm taking these away. And I just think that's all per person. Each person has a different view on something or a different look. And I can't anticipate all those looks or the future outcomes of, what am I, boy band? There we go. And I can't anticipate those. But, again, I'm not going to wear some like facade and put on a mask to like lie or to not speak about what I have quote unquote learned or read about. Because I think taking something that's super big and feels really complex and dividing it into ways that make it smaller chunks are they're easier to digest. So if I'm saying something that, oh, he's taking this away from me, it's very negative, right? This, in my background, this Bible verse says this. And I go, yeah, but if we know the background of that one, then also you realize that by using this verse or this thing, this book, it's like the front cover. It's like you're holding it in front of your face. And you're calling it, righteousness, in this case, is usually what I would get. And, that I try not to look backwards in my history to like justify anything I'm doing right now. Because to be honest, any traumatic religious experience, I didn't really care about or look at. It didn't spur me into this direction. It was just a very base level curiosity of, I have to find out these real answers because I'm not getting those. And so by doing that, I took something that's very big and it seems complex and vast. I remember seeing this chart one time where it's the biblical text in all the books, and it has like this pattern back and forth, and it was just impossible to try to. Usually it's used for an apologetics way of backing it up. But like one of the things I want to get into later in one of these is whoever wrote one of these books, the Gospels are a good example, right? They're like, it uses this psalm to back this up. And I go, well, remember, whoever's writing that book probably has access, because again, they're educated, they're writing Greek, so they have to use resource material. And if they're using resource material, they probably have the resource at their disposal. So they could, if they're familiar with it, if they read it, if they hear it, and they're like, ooh, right? They're going to go to that and then tie it in. Boom, now you have this literary work that ties back into something, and it makes it interesting for that book. But then that's where it is. So we have to take it piece by piece. But also understanding styles, understanding time periods, understanding the different aspects of where all these things touch. There's truth in there, and we can find it, right? The thing that I'm having a tough time with, at least in, a society standard, is there's a time period now where it's really difficult to understand what's happening, right? It's confusion in the world itself. But if we realize that we're the ones doing it, we're adding to a collective societal pot that is doing that, then we also have the exact ability to change it and stop doing that. I think in a turbulent world that we live in at the moment, there's a rise in going to the simple, right? Like it's easier to go to church on Sunday to feel better than to actually look at ourselves in the mirror and realize that we're doing it to ourselves, right? Because then that shatters everything else. It means like, there's no divine plan, there's no backup coming, right? It's just us right now. But like we also have the chance to fix it, which makes it even more, to me, it makes it more applicable to current events. Because if it's up to us, then we get to fix it or change it. or reroute the path. We don't get it by sitting down doing nothing and feeling good about it for a little bit of time. And I don't know why that's such a difficult take. I really don't. Sorry, another water break. I look like a turtle. And this is actually, it's really nice. And again, the whole point of this is just to be completely upfront, right? This also feels like a very cathartic experience. Like I get to express these things into something else other than my own brain. Mostly because I think you guys can recognize what's going on. And so by being open, being vulnerable, by choosing my words, by not choosing them to be right or wrong or mislead or to be dishonest, but just to be so curious that eventually we find, truth in a situation. I mean, I can't think of any better way to better one's life than just to seek out truth in a way. Because eventually you're going to get to a point where it becomes like a skill. And that doesn't necessarily have to be anything related to this show. It could just be, seeking out something where maybe you feel insignificant or like you're not worthy of it because the goal seems so big. But then when you break it down to small amount numbers, you get to these yes and no sequences, and you can string those sequences together, and then boom, you have an achievable outcome. Right? Boom, this is a little achievable outcome that comes from the goal down. So then they get simpler as you go up that almost like a ladder, right? You go up the ladder, you're at the top. Whatever that goal is, whatever you want it to be, like there you are. But it always starts out extremely complicated, even if it's a mental gymnastics. Because then I learned this too. And, trying to show this to my kiddo, to my wife, showing all these things. I'm like, oh, okay. See, you can do that. It's simpler than you think it is, right? Break it down. I can't remember. Just break it down. How can we make it really simple for you? So then we get to a point where we can just do it without even thinking. And I'm like, oh, we can do that with almost everything. And in the wake of being fully transparent, oh yeah, he got a grasshopper. Here. Oh, hi, buddy. You catch one? Yeah, he'll be one. We got him at Christmas. God. He was so excited. It was like, all right, this is the, kids, turn the camera off if you're watching this somehow and you've made it this far. But it was the last year to be Santa Claus. And, my wife and his stepmom, it was one of the first years where we started living together. And so this was the first time she got to be Santa Claus. And, she recorded the whole thing, and it's, little Apollo, and, oh, he's in his little box. Like, what could it be? How did he get here? And I realized this was also going to be the year that my kiddo started asking really good questions. And it was like, how did Santa Claus get the cat? It's not the size of the chimney. Like, how did he eat food on the way? Right, he can't fit a bunch of it in there. And I swear to goodness, it was just for that day, but I was like, okay, this is the last time being Santa Claus. Let's work with it, right? Let's just give it the 24 hours. And I go, it's magic. And he goes, it's right. It's magic. And it was you know, it reminded me a lot of my own take on like religious curiosity as well. Because we could just chalk it up to, it's ununderstandable. So we're never going to even get there. So we'll just leave it, leave it over there. Right. And that's just reflective of it's just reflective of the denial of not knowing it, which is also a mask. And I remember I'm still taking it now, but I'm doing a history class. And in a history class, when there was a child with some type of abnormality, or like a child that, how do I put it this way, had, something wrong with it, that it's going to be a lot of effort, whether it's, physical handicap, mental handicap, right? Maybe it was, something that someone didn't want, right? And we're at the like Greek Roman period, and so they would take it outside the city limits, leave it in the wild, and they would just say, Zeus, it's in your hands, right? Whatever happens, happens. And, they knew, and by saying that, we're like, disgusting. And I'm like, we're doing the same thing if we're taking something that is just a book, and someone wrote it, right? Maybe they made it ambiguous on purpose, right? Maybe they left it open, right? Maybe they didn't complete it. Maybe they didn't do that. Not because it's ununderstandable, because that was the purpose of the whole thing. And to me, it was really easy to see how you could tie those together. So they actually use this in the formation of Rome and the Roman Empire, right? You have the Romulus and Remus story. And wow, that's a good connection that I just made right now. That we're doing that same thing, but we're doing it with like a religious righteousness lens. And so by saying, it's understandable, right? We're just going to leave this into God's hands, right? It's just we're just ignoring it. We're just putting a mask on to not look at it. And I feel like that's wrong. And I feel like it won't be helpful. And I feel like a lot of people, am I saying like again? I believe a lot of people understand what I'm talking about, because that seems like a very common situation going on. Or, sometimes we put aside things that are terrible because of a predisposed position we have, or we hold on it, And I think some of that could be reflective in, and again, I'm not a person who keeps up with a lot of the, quote unquote current events, I suppose. There's some things I keep up on, but I remember initially the Israel-Palestine thing, which I know is a hot topic, but I did notice that a lot of people from the religious circle have this idea that if we don't, back Israel or keep Israel safe, then, and again, I have no skin in the game, so, but I can see bad stuff when I know, I get looking at it. And it was this thing where if we didn't, just because Israel's mentioned in like our religious text, if we say something against it, then we say it against God, essentially. And that doesn't seem right, because then you put off anything that they do. And if someone else is using it as the cover to do what they want to do, right, and call it, righteousness, well then, now you're also committing that same crime. If you want to go in a religious text, right, it's not bad enough to do it, it's also bad enough to think it. So, in this case, it's kind of the same thing. It's like, I'm thinking about how bad this is, but I can't say no to this, idea that I have, this, status that I have to uphold. And if I deny that, well, then I'm denying, the one, and I can't do that. So I'll just ignore the stuff that I don't want to look at and then just follow what I already feel that my bias is telling me to do. And that gets very dangerous very quick. And so, again, we'll keep this short. We're about 30-something minutes. And I think that's pretty clear cut on what I want to do with this, is to look at things without having that bias or having some mask that we're all wearing and trying to wade through. Right? If there's something I found or something that I heard from professionals, that whether it comes to like religious texts or whatnot, archaeologists or whoever, right, we're going to look at it. But also I know that there's some of these things we also will not have answers for, but I still think they're good to look at and to learn and to grow from. And I don't think that's bad at all. I think seeking something that's super difficult, knowing that you're probably not going to get an answer, will still build character to some capacity. It might offer up a tolerance that you didn't think you had for something. Not bad, but like, there's less negativity and division over someone else who has a different view. And combining all those things and, having connection more than anything having that connection with others that you normally wouldn't have is positive. Now, there are stipulations in that, don't get me wrong, but I think the positives outweigh the negative. And so that's what this is. That's what we are going to do. We're going to have fun. We're going to explore stuff. We're going to look at it. I'm going to be honest with it. If there's something, and this is something I find really cool. And hopefully by doing an example like this, it, oh, that's the wrong direction. So I got so excited about this that I just came home and immediately like turned on all the lights and whatnot and to the races. And this is what I was thinking about when I was coming home. And I think the best way to do this is just to attack it with the complete, open, honest answers, right? Some things I will not know. Some things I will try to find. I'll have questions after. I'll have questions editing, probably. So I'm here for the whole thing. And I want you to be here for it too. And again, if there's any stuff afterwards, like if you made it this far, like I really appreciate it. Because I think, a year from now, this will be a really cool look back, right? Like to go back and see the first one and then to the period that we're at then, the community that grows from it, the opportunities that open up from it, I don't know. I'm very optimistic and I'm very, very happy for it. And this was really fun, and there goes 40 minutes that seemed like nothing. But it was almost flow state like. I said like again. Anyway, that is the overarching start to what is going to be a wonderful journey. Thanks for being here, guys. Episode 2 coming up.